I'm Jeff St. Laurent with sellingcoaching.com, and today we're going to teach you how to follow up with the top 9 rules. Following up is an art, and it's a must if we want to get clients. We follow up after we get leads. It's from an event that we did. It's on the phone or it's in person. It's from a referral. It's from a website inquiry. Whenever we get those leads, it's imperative that we follow up. Before we get into the 9 rules, you want to understand the main objective of following up, and that's very simple. We're gauging 2 things, their need and the timing of that need. So whenever we're going through this stuff, a lot of it's going to be kind of gauging that by saying, hey, what's your motivation for wanting to talk to me? Learning a little bit more about that, and then, hey, why now? Why is that so important for you right now? Once we understand that point, then our job is to just transition it and ask them if they've considered working with a coach, have they considered one of our products or services, and kind of making that transition and maybe asking them to buy. Main objective of following up, do we have a potential client or not, and can we transition them to get paid? Remember, we're in business to get paid so we can help people. You're going to stay broke if you don't find that transition or follow up. So let's get into the 9 rules so we start to understand this and do this effectively. The first rule is very simple. It's follow up. And you might laugh like, well, what do you mean? You got to follow up. A lot of people I talk to, clients I've met and I've worked with, and other people I've worked with in the past, they just don't follow up. And I don't know if they're just forgetting to follow up, they've got too much going on, or a lot of the times I find they don't really know what to say. I'm going to be teaching you that stuff, but you got to follow up. And even if it's not graceful or whatever it is, it's just get out there and a simple, hey, thanks so much. It was great meeting you. It's good having you at the event. I'm so glad you found my website, or it's so glad so-and-so referred you to me. I'd love to learn a little bit more about what you're looking for. Ask them questions. The cool part about sales is that it's just coaching. It's asking questions and listening, but it's just a different sense that we're not just a coach with no agenda, is we have an agenda. We want to find out, do they have a need and the timing of that need so we could potentially work with them. That's the only difference. So follow up. That's the first rule. Because if you don't follow up, you're never going to get a client and you're never going to get paid. Second rule to following up is follow up again. I know I'm getting really deep here. Seriously though, 1 or 2 follow-ups, you might as well not follow up at all because most people don't respond. They're too busy. Even if they're interested, you'll find that people need consistent follow-ups. So after you follow up that first time, a lot of people will give up. Oh, they never got back to me, or well, I called them and left them a message, or I sent them an email, or I messaged them on Facebook and they just never get back to me, or they forgot. You forgot that you did that and you never wrote it down anywhere. Follow up again in 1 week, etc. So you've got to follow up again. That's the second rule. People need sometimes a minimum of 7 follow-ups before they even respond sometimes. Now, you have to understand that the more time it takes and the more follow-ups it takes, it might be corresponding to maybe a lack of interest, or maybe their timing for their need isn't really that like right now. So those are indicators. It doesn't rule out though that you have a potential client or someone that could buy your products and services. You just want to pay attention to that stuff. Typically, if people are very interested, they should get back to you with 1 or 2 responses, 1 or 2 follow-ups. So just be aware of that. But once you follow up, second rule is follow up again. Third rule to following up is what I call speed of response. Speed of response means, when do we follow up? Right now. The only time we have is it's now. The coach I worked with as my mentor coach said it's now o'clock. The reason why we follow up right now, or as soon as or as close to as possible of when that inquiry comes in, or when we did the event, or when the referral happened, is because timing is everything. If you wait hours or even a day sometimes you might as well not even follow up at all. Because when someone has the need to make change in their life, or go forward, or really as inspired through what you've delivered through them, through your event, to say, wow, you know what, I want to do something about this, and I want to talk to them, or I need to learn more about what they offer. That is right now. So you got to get on that stuff. Because what's going to happen is I'm going to go to your event and I'm going to be like, oh my God, they're the best thing in the world. And I connect with who they are and their message. And I might be thinking, wow, this person could really assist me. So I write you an email, or I raise my hand at the event, or send you a text at the event, or get your email and say, hey, great, great job. And a lot of these inquiries might not even be saying, hey, I want to hire you. You're rarely ever going to get that, but they're going to be coming in the form of, hey, how's it going? You did a great job. What you do is really great. They're never really going to come out and just say that stuff. But when I come to that event, after I'm done, I go home. And guess what's at home for me? Life, kids, spouse, work, crap, just BS that just overwhelms me. And guess what? I go back into that hole that I was in before I came to your event, or before I listened to you on the phone. And guess what? I get overwhelmed. And so if you don't get back to me ASAP, I might get to that point where I'm too helpless or I'm not going to move forward again. So that's why speed of response is so important. So if you're in a situation where you can't get back to them right away, don't think it's a bad thing. Don't not follow up. I'd rather have you follow up a week later than never follow up at all. Just understand, when it comes to sales, timing is everything. Think about when you're looking to buy something. When the time is right, you're ready to go. And when you're ready to go, you could go into any store or talk to any person. And if it feels right, you're going to buy. So you don't know where else they're looking or what else they're looking for. So when that inquiry comes in, you get on that right now. The fourth rule to following up is find the best method. Nowadays, there's so many ways to contact people. There's email, there's texting, there's phone, there's Facebook messaging, there's regular connecting on Facebook, there's LinkedIn, there's Twitter, there's Instagram. There's just so many different ways to connect with people. So what we want to do is we want to find what is the best method, because you might prefer text, you might prefer email, but what do they prefer? So initially when it comes in, find out where is this inquiry coming in from. And then you can respond via that method. So if someone comes to you from, let's say, a Facebook message, you can respond via Facebook message. What I like to do is sooner than later, depending on who the person is or how it came in from, is especially if the lead's coming into to me, is I like to get them over to email as soon as possible. That's just my preferred method of communication, and it keeps myself organized. I keep everything in my inbox, all correspondences. So if possible, I like to ask someone, hey, would you mind emailing me? And I'll always ask them, does email work well for you? If it does, here's my email address. Email me there. Or what's your email address? And I'll email you and we can resume the conversation there. I like to get that person over to my preferred method as soon as possible. So this way I'm in that zone. But I've also had times where people don't necessarily like email or do email. And so I always ask, and I want to find out as soon as possible if it seems to be an issue. And what I mean by that is if they don't seem to be very responsive, is I want to find out, what is your preferred method of communication? Do you prefer text? Do you prefer email? And go from there. Either way, the whole objective, and why we want to do that, is because we want to have ease of back and forth interaction and communication. If I'm trying to do email, but you're great on text, it's just like we're never going to connect that way, and time's going to go by. And why is that bad? Because of the timing of their need. The more time that goes by, the less likely they are to buy. So we're going to really think about what is that best method, and then boom, hit up with that and move the communication forward. The fifth rule to following up is seek buying signs. What are buying signs? Buying signs are signals from the potential customer where they're saying either literally or kind of secretively that they want to work with you, they want to hire you, they want to buy your products and services. So a lot of the times they'll say this on the phone, they'll write it, it's very literal. They'll say, hey, I want to buy your book. I want to hire you as a coach. I'm considering hiring you as a coach. Those are buying signs. Some are not so literal in the sense they'll say, I'm looking forward to reading your book. I'm looking forward to, potentially working with you as a coach. Even though they're not necessarily saying, I'm going to hire you or I'm going to buy your book, I'm looking forward to reading it. Well, it says, hey, you know what, I'm going to buy your book, or I'm going to hire you as a coach, or they're considering it. So those are the easier ones to see. The buying signs that aren't so easy to see are when someone responds for that lead, and they might just say like, hey, great job at the event. I really enjoyed listening to your material. You're fantastic at what you do. And then they might say something about themselves. I'm going through this struggle right now. I'm going through blah, 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 and you really helped me. Well, they didn't say anything about working with your coach, did they? They didn't say anything about maybe buying one of your products or services or something that you offered to help them with that situation that you spoke to them on. But they're saying, hey, I really enjoyed what you taught. I'm really enjoying the message that you sent. And I'm going through this and it really helps me. Well, that's a buying signal. They're basically saying, I have a need and you have something that has helped me out. Well, wouldn't it be, smart to think that, I could help them out further and in a lot more detail and a lot more successfully if I were to work with them as a coach or they were to buy one of my products and services in addition to what they've already heard. So that's where we got to be keen on understanding and being aware of these buying signals, because these buying signals are things that basically allow us to kind of ask them, hey, listen, I noticed that you said this, this, and this, or it seems as if you're considering working with me as your coach. Would you be interested in a complimentary session? See, these buying signs are clues to clue us in as to when to potentially transition this follow-up from where we are to, hey, would you consider working with me? Would you consider buying with my book? So it's very, very important that we find them. And if they're literal, great, let's go with it. If they say, hey, I can't wait to read your book, or I'm considering buying your book, or I want to buy your book, great. I'm going to call them up immediately, or I'm going to email them right back. Ideally, I'm going to call them if they have their number, but if I don't, I'm going to email them right back, and I'm going to say, awesome, I'm excited to get this going. What's the best contact number? Let's create a conversation so we can move this forward. Or here's a link to purchase my book. Whatever the case is. If they're saying, hey, considering hiring you, working with you as my coach, great. I'm going to email them back right away. I'm going to call them up right away if I have that number. I'm going to say, awesome. Listen, the first step is usually we set up a complimentary session. You get a feel for working with me, and we can decide to go from there. So see how I'm moving it forward? If the buying sign is literal, I'm moving it right forward. If it's not so literal, where the example I gave before, I'm going to write back to them and say, hey, listen, I noticed you're going through X, Y, and Z. And then I'm going to ask them questions like, hey, listen, how important is it that you achieve that right now? What are you currently doing to be, moving forward in that arena? I know you attended my event. What were the top things that you got from the event that are moving you forward? Why is now the right time for you to work on that? And as I get these answers back, via this method of communication, I'm going to gauge and I'm going to say, wow, yeah, their needs are pretty big and the timing really feels very current or now. That's when I'm going to do that same transition I just talked about. As I'm going to say, hey, listen, have you ever considered working with a coach? Hey, have you considered buying or taking a look at some of my products or services? My book assists people with exactly what you're going through. Is this something you consider buying? I'd love to send you a signed copy. See how I'm transitioning it? So that's why seeking these buying signals are so, so very important, because it allows us to understand if we're going to move it to the next step or not. The sixth rule to following up is get the answer. What does that mean? Get the answer means we're looking for a yes or a no. Once we start engaging with them in dialogue on the phone, through email, it could be one time, it could be multiple correspondences. We're looking for them to decide yes or no. Are they interested in taking that next step? Whatever that next step is. So whether they're potentially considering working with you as a coach, one of your products or services, whatever it is, at some point, as I said in the last rule, is we're gauging that timing, their need, we're gauging that interest, and then we've got to, see those buying signals and then transition and asking them, are you considering this? Would you consider this? How would you feel about moving forward and doing something like this? Now we've got to get an answer from them. The last thing you want is, maybe I'll think about it. I don't know. I've got a lot going on in my life right now. We want to get them to a yes or a no. And oftentimes I'll get this with a client and I'll say, listen, it doesn't matter to me what you're looking for. If it's a no, that's perfectly fine. If you're not interested in a complimentary session, if you're not interested in working with me as a coach, if you're not interested in buying my book, I'm okay with that. I'm just here to find out, you said you expressed an interest. I kind of clarified it and said, yeah, you know what? It sounds like you're really interested and you said you really are looking forward to doing something about it right now. I made the suggestion. Does that sound like something you want to do, or is now maybe not the right time for you? I want to get them to a yes or no. The worst thing is when you're in the middle because you don't really know what to do or what's going to go on. If they say, I need to think about it, okay, yeah, well, you could follow up with them. But I'd rather get a yes or a no. Is it work for you right now? Yeah, great. Let's get you the product or service. Let's get you onto a complimentary session. Let's move you forward. If it's no, I certainly understand that. You know what? If something changes in the future, we can stay connected and go from there. So yes or no gives you like a signal of, okay, I don't need to follow up with them anymore right now. Or you know what? Yes, let's move forward and let's do something. So get the answer. We're not pushing them for the answer. We're just simply asking. Once they've expressed that interest and once we've kind of broached that transition to a potential, hey, would you consider this? Is this something you'd be interested in? Anything wishy-washy isn't what we're looking for. We're looking to clarify what exactly are they looking for. If it's a yes, let's move it forward. If it's no, thanks so much. Great to meet you. Listen, we'll stay in touch via email. If something changes, you know where to find me. That's what getting the answer is all about. It's going to save you a lot of time and energy and keep you forward and moving forward on the next lead to qualify them. The 7th rule to following up is end with a plan. So you're talking with the person on the phone, you're engaging with them via email. At some point, it's going to come to an end of, well, they're either going to, yes, I want to move forward and do something or buy something. Great. Create a plan. What's the next step? If they say they're going to work with you potentially as a coach. Great. What's the next step? You're going to say, great, here's what we do next. We schedule a complimentary session. Usually they're about an hour. Begin that process. If they want to buy your book or their product or service that you sell, great. What's the next step? You've got to create a plan. If it's a no, then what's the next plan? The next plan is fantastic. It was great meeting with you. It was great talking with you. Listen, we'll stay in touch and we can follow up in the future if something changes. Great, create a plan. If it's, I need to think about it, which you will get and people will need to think about it sometimes. Like I said, it's not ideal, but if it's a think about it, it's like, well, if you mind me asking, what is it that you need to think about? What is it that you need to go over, to help you to a decision? Maybe you can talk with them about it a little bit more and work some things out. But either way, if they need to think about it, you've got to set a plan and don't just be like, okay, great, you think about it. Say, listen, well, how much time do you think you'd need in order to come to a decision about whether you want to do this or not? Ask some question that defines what type of time frame do you need. When would you like me to follow up with you? Again, I'm only going to follow up with someone if they seem like they're genuinely and seriously interested in that, and I gauge that through the conversations that we create. But what type of time frame are you looking for? Oh, I just need a couple weeks. Great. What do you anticipate to change in the next few weeks that would allow you to come to a decision? See how I'm always asking people these questions? I'm getting inside their mind to find out what's really going on. What's going to happen and change in a couple weeks that's going to be so different that you could decide then versus that you couldn't do right now. Either way, I'm coming up with a plan. I'm going to say fantastic. So you're saying that you'd get back to me on Friday, blah blah blah, and I give them a date. Great. Listen, if I don't hear back from you by then, would it be okay if I followed up with you again? I'm getting permission. So this is the plan. It's a plan of follow-up. Because the worst thing about following up is, you hang up the phone or the email communication ends, and then you're just kind of like, okay, they need to think about it. And then you're waiting there. And then you don't know what to do. And it's like the next day comes, and a day seems like an eternity, especially when you think someone's interested or they're going to get back to you. And then you're sitting there and you're waiting, and it's like, you don't want to feel like a pest. Do I follow up? Do I wait another day? Do I wait till Friday? Do I wait till next week? I just email them again. Okay, well, then what I do? What are the rules to that? There's no rules to that. That's the problem, is that it's a guessing game. And odds are nothing's ever going to come of it. Because if you don't qualify it, they'll say, yeah, just follow up with me. And then they're going to join the witness protection program and they're going to disappear. When you create a plan, you get permission. Permission is, hey, listen, if you don't mind me calling you back, if I don't hear from you next Friday, would that work for you? Fantastic. Or it sounds like you need a week to think about it. Or it sounds like a lot's going on right now. When would be a great time to follow up on this? Or, you want to set up a complimentary session? Fantastic. Here's what works for me next week. Oh, you're out of town next week. Oh, you don't have your schedule in front of you right now. Whatever scenario it is, great, fantastic. When could we follow up? Tomorrow? Fantastic. Would I follow up with you, or do you want me to follow up with you, or are you going to follow up with me? So I'm nailing down all these details, and we got to get really specific. And I'm going through a bunch of scenarios right now of things we could say or potentially do. The whole point is I'm going to nail it down. So I'm just going to write in my calendar. If someone says a couple weeks or next week or tomorrow, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my calendar. I'm going to write it in there, and it's a follow up with so-and-so. And I'm going to close my book, and I'm going to forget about that person. And then when that date comes up and that time comes up, it's in my book, it's in my calendar. I'm like, great, I'm going to follow up with that person today. And therefore, all like the anxiety and all the questions I have in between that is, I don't have it. And then when I follow up with them, the coolest part is it's 2 weeks later or whatever period later, and I follow up with that person, and guess what? I say, hey, listen, you know what? It's been a couple weeks since our last conversation. Following up with you per your request. You said that you'd get back to me, and if I hadn't heard from you, you said it'd be okay if I followed up with you. So here I am. Isn't that cool? They said it, and you feel great about it. You know exactly when to do it. So always set a plan when you're near the end of the follow-up. The 8th rule to following up, add them to your database. No matter what the outcome is yes, I want to move forward and do something or buy something, and whether they hire you or buy something, whether they say no, and they go on their merry way, or whether they need to think about it. Whatever the result is of the follow-up, you want to add that contact to your database. In one of my videos, the number one objective to our business is building a database. So through this communication, you've gotten a lead, you've had some interaction with that person. No matter what the result, we want to put that person's name, ideally phone number and email, into our database. And what that does is that we send out at a minimum weekly emails to these people. They also get it through social media if that's how they're connected through what we do. And that's kind of like what we call an ongoing follow-up. That's where they kind of get, on an ongoing basis, what are we doing? What's going on? Events that we're offering, free education that we're putting out there. That's that ongoing follow-up. So no matter what happens as a result of this initial follow-up, we put them on our database, and then they get that ongoing follow-up. Because remember, timing is everything. So when someone says no, they rarely actually say those words no, but when it's more of a, I need to think about it, it's more of a not now. Not now because right now the timing's not right. Doesn't mean that the timing will ever be right for that person, but more than likely it's not right at this point. And so it's you know what, maybe later on it will be. And for some of those people it will be. That's why our database is so important. That's why those weekly consistent emails are so important, is it keeps us in front of these people that we create connections with. I've had people that I've gotten business from that have hired me with their coach, 5 years later, 7 years later, and those are real numbers. And these are people that, like, even remember years ago, I sold a computer chip on Craigslist from an old computer of mine, and I added the guy to my database. And then I think it was like 5 years later, I'm sending out my emails just every week for 5 years. And then he just all of a sudden one day emailed me and said, hey, listen, you know what? I'm going through X, Y, and Z, and I've been getting your emails forever. And I thought about, you know what? Maybe I'll talk to Jeff and maybe work with him as my coach. Worked with him for over a year. So that's the value of that ongoing follow-up by adding these people to your database. And the 9th rule to following up is ask for a referral. No matter what the outcome, whether they buy your product or service, whether they need to think about it, or whether it's, no, not now, we want to say, fantastic. Listen, while I have you on the phone, or listen while I have you, who do you know? And you always want to ask that as an open-ended question. Because when you say, do you know anyone, what do most people think? No, I don't know anybody. So who do you know that might benefit from my product or service? Who do you know that might benefit from the things that we've spoken about? Obviously, you'd be more specific, but who do you know? Who do you know? And then follow up with that request. Like, oh, you know what? I might know some people, or let me think about that a little bit. I might qualify it and say, do you really think you might know some people? Or is that maybe just something, you don't quite know what to say right now? And I don't know where I'd go with that, but I always ask those people those questions, or I'll send them an email afterwards and say, hey, thanks so much for the interaction. Thanks so much for whatever. Great talking to you. Great getting to know you a little bit. Hey, listen, who do you know that might benefit? Or especially if I've got an event coming up. Or, hey, you know what? I'm actually looking for 2 new coaching clients right now. People like yourself who are motivated to create some change in their world. Who do you know that might be in a position like that? It's so vital that we do this stuff, because just by asking that one question, you don't know what we can get and new leads from that and potential clients from that. So always, always, always ask for the referral. Even if you forget to, go back to that person. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's 2 months later. So what? Email them again, call them again and say, hey, I know we spoke a few months earlier, but you know what? I was wondering, you know what? It seems like you're well connected. It seems like you're an entrepreneur. It seems like you're a businesswoman or a businessman and you're well connected. Listen, I'm curious, who might you know that's looking for positive change in their life? Who might you know that might want to come to a workshop that I'm hosting next week on X, Y, and Z? That's how we get out there and potentially get those leads and get those clients to follow up with. Now that we know the 9 rules to following up, go out there and do it. Create those lists and follow up with those people and follow up again. And you know what? It's not going to be perfect. It never is. And even with all these rules, At the end of the day, just do what you need to do. Get something out there. Use this as a guideline to get you moving and to make everything a lot more effective. Because the more effective we become at follow-up, the more we're able to do one thing, and that's distinguish and clarify who's really serious and who's really curious. And what's looking at now, where it's called sorting. We're sorting out these leads as we're looking to get clients. And now that we've sorted out the serious from the curious, we take those serious and say, hey, listen, how important is it that you do this right now? Remember, need and timing, and then make that transition. And hopefully from there, we can get paid. When you do this on a regular basis, when you're good at it, meaning you're working on honing this skill, these are selling skills, very, very vital to your success, but you're consistent with it, the best thing is you're gonna find those serious people and you're gonna get business. And that's what this is about. It's about getting business, getting paid, so we can share our gifts with these people and help them and move them forward. So if you're ready to take that leap, always remember, selling coaching is the absolute best way to fast track your business from a part-time hobby to a full-time career. Now get out there, get leads, get clients, and get paid.